Welcome to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast, where we provide constant improvement to businesses through timely, actionable financial solutions. Do you want answers to your financial questions? Email us at bsp@kaizencpas.com. I'm your host, Mark Valesky. Now let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Kaizen Time. I'm joined by Brian Bride, Director of Payroll Operations. Brian, what's that you have in front of you?
I have a piece of paper.
Looks like 8.5 by 11 inches.
It is.
And white with black copy.
Yep.
Why do people use this?
Well, the answer would be why you still use it for a time card. And I'm not really sure why, but let's talk about some of the risks that you could have if you're using this as a paper time card. So let's say that you're an auto mechanic shop, right? Really busy week, and it's time to enter your payroll hours. You gather all the pieces of paper from the guys. They got dirt on them. You can't read them sometimes. They have bad handwriting. And as you're trying to get payroll in, you enter in 42 hours instead of 40. Then some of you enter in 44 hours and they got 50 because they have overtime. So now you have two checks that are wrong and you got kind of issues. So your tech that you overpaid because you did the payroll in, you got to make it up next time. And the one that you underpaid, you got to write another check, pay him for his overtime hours. And now you got extra checks, possible labor violations because you didn't pay him for the right time.
See, that's the big one right there.
Yep.
Huge issues. And that is caught very quickly.
Yep.
Yep.
Anytime there's a check around that doesn't have, a stub attached to it, you're like, you don't know what's going on here. And then there are small tax implications, but they do catch up, right? If this happens multiple times over multiple weeks, you could have a lot of fines due to not depositing timely things.
And
like
what if
that.
the bank's closed?
The bank's closed and they can't get their money the next day, and they're mad at you.
Yep. So there's a lot of issues.
Right. And so, a lot of times, like especially in the auto repair industry that we talk about, the shops are like the flat rate or commission. So they're tracking hours for like compliance. Because even if you pay somebody on flat rates and they have a commission and they've made money for that week, right? Maybe they've made $1,400, but if they worked 80 hours doing it and you're not tracking the hours, they might have worked overtime or less than minimum wage. So it's really important to track those hours. So sometimes shops will use the paper just to track the hours to make sure that they either got their 40 in or they pay them enough for the hourly rate, right? But this can also cause issues with overtime. Even if you're doing like flat rate, like we're saying, it's 3 hours for a brake job, 2 hours to change the oil. I don't know. That's why I hire someone to work on my car. I don't know.
Good answer.
So they still need to be paying minimum wage. So, even if they're turning 85 hours and they're making extra money, if they actually worked physically 81 hours and you're not paying overtime, you're also in violation of labor laws. So if you're using a paper time card to figure all this out, it can be really, really time consuming to be like, okay, did they work enough hours? How much did I pay them? So if you were to integrate it into your time system, right, you're going to save a lot of that time. And we'll talk about that in a second. The other thing to do with it is like, what about when you have paid time off? You got a paper time card. Are they writing that they took vacation? Are they not filling it out? Maybe somebody else is doing the payroll for you that week and they're underpaying them vacation because they didn't get the memo about that. So making sure all that stuff's integrated is really, really important. Other things about it is like missing out times. So let's say maybe your payroll date's Thursday, your pay period ends on Wednesday. A tech's got to leave to pick up their kid from school because they're sick. They never sign out and you don't know when they left. And then you're waiting on them for payroll and you can't get a hold of them. So being able to integrate all that is really, really important. It doesn't matter what you really use. Most service bureaus can work with both. So if you have like some kind of point of sale system, like TechMetric is a big one in the auto space, or some other kind of ERP, or if you're a restaurant, you might punch in and out with Toast. We'll do exports out of those systems and upload it straight into payroll. So you're not doing all the steps of like taking time out and trying to calculate it and put it up there. We also offer integrated time, which is really fantastic because they punch in and out of the system. So some things with integrated time, either you're using a system that you already have that's like an ERP or POS, or you use an integrated time clock, is that you can audit processes, right? So if you have a paper timesheet, you don't know when people really punched in and out, right? Because They're just writing it down. They're on a phone, they're punching the computer, it's audited. If somebody misses a punch, we can submit a missing punch. And then, that's saying, hey, I missed punching out. Here's what time I left. And a manager can approve that. And that's like an audit trail. Your handoff is streamlined. You're not trying to collect pieces of paper, reading bad handwriting, things like that. It goes straight from a computer system to another computer system. You can use mobile phones to punch. Maybe not everybody's got a computer at their station. They're in auto industry. Maybe they're, in food service, or maybe they check into a warehouse, but they're not anywhere near a computer. You can use a mobile phone to punch. And most of our clients will either do like geolocation, where they have to be in the area to punch, so they're not punching from home. Or my favorite one is making them log onto the Wi-Fi. Almost everybody offers Wi-Fi for their employees. So they have to punch from that Wi-Fi. So even if they're on their phone, they still have to connect to the Wi-Fi to punch. So they're not anywhere else but by you, right? And another thing that's really important about the timesheets is overtime. They can write off on their taxes now. So making sure they're paid their overtime correctly is really important, so they can take the write-offs that they want and, that they need and deserve, especially in people around, that 50, 60, 70,000 range. That's when they can really pay to be working a lot of overtime.
Where they can get the benefits. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So Brian, I know we talk a lot about, hey, these are penalties and those have real dollar values attached to them. Can you throw down some numbers that you've kind of seen?
Well, I do know of one of, a misclassified employee, which is kind of similar to this because you're not paying overtime because if you're classifying as a 1099. We just had one where it was the client wasn't really sure how to classify somebody and they made a wrong decision, and it's like $1,000 a person. Plus you're paying all the missed wages, right? And in some states it's in triple. So for damages, right? So if you are, let's say you underpaid somebody like $100 in overtime for the week, right? You could end up paying them $300 at the end of the day because you didn't pay them enough money. Not to mention like the labor, coming after you and looking at you, then looking at your workers' comp, then looking at all the other, kind of industries that are kind of attached to each other to be like, hey, let's make sure that everything is on the up and up on this one. So yeah, I mean, it can be real, like, it's per occurrence, right? So, if you show a lot of times, like one thing is, especially with overtime, sometimes is restaurants, because they're working tips, they're not tracking some of the hours sometimes. So missing like overtime wages. There was one in our area that I'm not sure the exact dollar amount, but Department of Labor went after them. They were like a mom and pop store, right? Like enough of the employees said, hey, I wasn't being paid correctly. This is wrong. And like they had to pay a whole bunch of money on this. So yeah, it's per instance, and it's hundreds of dollars fines per instance, and it can really add up very quickly.
It's funny. I shouldn't say funny, like it's comical, haha. But in reality, once the Department of Labor kind of gets in there and they like open that box a little bit, there's a lot they can catch.
Yeah, there's everything. And then, then you get audited by the IRS or you get audited by the states.
Yeah, and the other thing too is when it's not on a computer or anything and you're going through your own book, do you even remember what you wrote from 3 months ago?
Right.
What does that even mean?
Right.
So, but aside from all the fines, right, the thousands of dollars of fines that you're trying to save by moving to one of our electronic payroll systems, is the dollar value in savings just in the amount of time you're saving? As the owner. Okay. So you, the individual owner or HR person, whatever,
right,
you spend how much time of your week working on payroll?
Absolutely. I have a good example of this.
Please.
We have a client who has, they pay a lot of vendors through the system because they are actual like 1099 employees where they'll work 2 hours and they're gone, or they contract them for 3 hours for 1 month and then they don't pay them for 4 months and they come back and contract them again, right, in their business. So up and up, they're 1099, the contractor can say, no, I don't want to do that job, and they find somebody else, right? So they fit all the requirements. They have a very complicated payroll, and they actually have a system for the contractors to enter their hours in, but they were taking that information out using pivot tables and all that stuff, manipulating it. And we're like, well, we can upload it straight in the system. We're going to save them at least an hour every payroll, not to mention all the mistakes, right? Because we do get from them probably once every 2 months, like, oh, I mispaid this person, or I missed paying them. I need to pay them on the next payroll. So, besides from those mistakes, right? Which think about if you have a contractors and you're not paying them correctly, how long are you going to be able to keep them around? Right.
Right.
Yeah. So,
I mean, look at, some of the airports, they're not paying their employees. How long do they stay around? Because eventually you're not getting paid. How often do you just keep showing up?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And anytime, I mean, this is an example of pulling from like their point of sale system, right? It's a proprietary system for their business. Sometimes that is like what we prefer because you have a lot of data in there. You need to run your business and we want to fit into your process. So being able to export it, run it through one of our tools straight into the system, we save tons of time. This hour every payroll, they're bi-weekly. There's entering numbers plus the accuracy, right? Think about all the time they have to check this afterwards, make sure everybody's paid correctly. Now it's much easier to double check everything because they can pull out another spreadsheet and just compare it. So it just saves so much on time. It's not even funny. If you had an extra hour and a half every payroll, you'd be in really great shape.
And that's what we're looking at for people, hours saved per week.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not just talking for the person doing the payroll. We're talking about even the employees.
Yes.
How much quicker is it to get in and out through a digital payroll system?
Super easy punching if it's on your phone, which a lot of people prefer. Your app's on your phone, you're opening up, you're using your FaceTime or your Face View, whatever they call it. I don't know what they call it anything, but you look at it and then you push the button, you punch it in and you're there. My team uses it when they're missing punches. They're like, oh, I forgot to punch back in from lunch. They submit the missing punch. I go to my phone, I look at it, accept it, boom, we're done. And that just flows over to the next payroll and you're not validating information anymore because you do it as it happens.
Brian, is there anything else you want to add for why you should be using paper or not using paper punch cards?
Well, I mean, it's even like the more paper you use, like it's even like security, right? What if like you have somebody's first and last name on a piece of paper that's like floating out there, and they know it's attached to your payroll, right? Because it might even have the company name on it, right? It might even have the payroll company name on it. We have a form back in the day, and people don't use them anymore, but it was a payroll sheet that can enter hours and it has all the information on it. Somebody gets a hold of that, they can easily do a phishing or a spear phishing, like, hey, I know your information. Here we go. I'm going to try to get you to give up more stuff. So removing paper is the best way to protect yourself, security wise, and to increase your efficiency.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thanks.
You've been listening to Kaizen Time, part of the Blood, Sweat, and Business podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe and leave a 5-star review. This podcast has been brought to you by Kaizen CPAs Plus Advisors, providing advisory and accounting services to help you grow your business. Learn more at kaizencpas.com or email us at bsb@kaizencpas.com.